From $3.4 billion at its peak to less than $500 million today, almost a 90% wipeout. That's the story of Unacademy, India's second most famous EdTech company, only next to BYJU'S. And just like BYJU'S, it is almost done and dusted. Gaurav Munjal, the founder of Unacademy, is a big fan of Bollywood icon Shah Rukh Khan. In 2001, a very young Gaurav meets SRK at an event and gives him a handwritten note. SRK opens it and reads it, and that reads as follows: "One day I'll be so successful that you will want to meet me." And SRK gave a smile after reading that. He told his parents a similar thing: "One day I'll build a company as big as Microsoft." They also gave a smile. So that is the man Gaurav Munjal. In this video, we are dissecting Unacademy's meteoric rise and brutal fall. You are watching Dawn Unicorns. If you are interested in startups and entrepreneurship, subscribe to the channel. Now let's dive in. Now Unacademy goes through a journey of three broad phases. Phase 1 is the beginning, which is a steady growth phase. Phase 2 is the era of COVID lockdown, and that marks the explosion of EdTech expectations. And this is the peak glory phase for Unacademy. Phase 3 is post-COVID collapse. The empire crumbles like a building built with sand. It was 2010. Gaurav Munjal was doing engineering at NMIMS University in Mumbai, and there he started a YouTube channel named Unacademy and started uploading videos on computer graphics and Java programming. But he was not trying to build a startup. It was more like doing something useful, nothing more. And the video started getting traction. He got good feedback, so he kept doing videos whenever he had time. In 2011, Gaurav lands a software engineering internship at Directly, and then he gets a full-time job in the same company. But even then, he was making videos in the YouTube channel. But still, it was not business, just a passion. And now the main co-founder enters the picture. His name is Roman Saini, a childhood friend of Gaurav Munjal. And Roman is the classic superstar by conventional success standards in India. At the time, he was studying MBBS at AIIMS, India's most prestigious medical institution. And Roman Saini also starts uploading videos in Unacademy. So two friends, two creators, one channel. And then in 2013, Roman Saini cracks the civil services exam and becomes an IAS officer at a young age of 22. As you know, that's the ultimate Indian dream. So now he's a collector, a government officer with serious responsibility. But still he made videos for Unacademy in his free time. In the same year 2013, Gaurav gets restless. He got a startup idea, an app to help students and bachelors find rental rooms. A classic problem every aspiring young Indian faces when he moves out of his hometown. And Gaurav launches a startup, Flat.2, and that startup works decently well. And in 2014, Gaurav sells his startup to Common Floor, a real estate company, but the exact financial number is not disclosed. But it is certain that Gaurav walked away with some real money and something even more valuable, that is proof. Proof that he could build something, launch it and sell it for some money. So naturally, Gaurav wanted to increase the bar. He decided to make Unacademy a big company. The vision was to democratize education by building the largest learning platform in India. But he can't do this alone, right? So Gaurav wanted to rope in Roman Saini. And he starts convincing Roman to quit IAS and join him full-time to build Unacademy. In India, even if you are an IAS officer, the reality is you are not the decision maker. The chief minister does that. You can't implement your own ideas even if they serve a public good. You need the CM's approval. The chief minister has the ultimate veto. Politicians decide the what and IAS officers just execute the how. So you are a cog in someone else's machine. But building a startup is such an authentic experience. You can have your own vision. You decide what to build, how to build, and who to impact. So the mission belongs to you. You can achieve something massive on your own terms. So given this reality, in 2015, just 2 years after joining the service, Roman Saini resigned IAS to build Unacademy. In September 2015, 4 members, Gaurav Munjal, Roman Saini, Hemish Singh and Sachin Gupta, registered Sorting Hat Technologies Private Limited. That's the parent company, the legal entity. Unacademy is the brand name. Now, although technically there are 4 members who started the startup, the main founders are Gaurav Munjal and Roman Saini. And ever since the beginning, Roman Saini has become the main attention grabber for Unacademy, especially in attracting and building trust among students, given his stellar academic achievements like cracking AIIMS and cracking civil services exam. And his resignation to IAS has become pure PR gold. Because just think about it, 24 years old IAS officer quits prestigious IAS job to start an EdTech startup. The story is instant viral material, right? At the end of 2015, they launched the Unacademy app for students, and they also launched Unacademy Educator app for teachers. And it had all the features built in it for teaching online. Any teacher could create educational videos and upload them with a smartphone. So with that app, they made content creation simple for teachers. But initially, they didn't pay any monthly salaries to teachers. They mostly made videos for recognition. Only some top educators got some money if they make some X number of videos in a month. Essentially, they are building the supply side before getting students. And in August 2016, for the first time, Unacademy raised 6.7 crores of funding. The lead investor is Bloom Ventures. But what's more interesting is Sachin Bansal and Binny Bansal, Flipkart founders, Vijay Shekhar Sharma, Paytm founder, Kunal Shah, the founder of Cred and once the founder of Recharge. Even these well-known startup founders invested in Unacademy in that funding round. This is actually a deliberate strategy by Unacademy founders. The amount these founders invested was actually negligible. It is not even disclosed in the public domain how much they invested. But that is excellent PR. Because the media doesn't care the number, it wants big names to grab eyeballs. Their names carry more weight than the capital they invested. So it became viral in tech and startup circles. But from the beginning, fundraising was relatively easier for Gaurav and Roman for multiple reasons. Number one, Roman Saini is no less than an ex-IAS officer, an AIMS alumni, that is instant credibility, and Gaurav had already built and exited a startup. And given the reality that most Indians believe Indian education system is terrible, Unacademy's stated mission to democratize education through technology naturally sounds promising, especially when founders have instant credibility. Hence, on top of their credibility, their timing was perfect. Everyone just believed in EdTech at the time. And then with funding secured, they went aggressively on onboarding more educators. But even then, most teachers were not actually paid. Only a few top educators got money. See, the traditional education model is, there will be fixed teachers, fixed subjects, you get Professor X for physics, that's it. It's the college model or the university model. Unacademy's model is a platform model. There will be thousands of educators. There was no fixed curriculum, no rigid structure, just they wanted to create a platform, that's it. And their strategy was something like this. Step 1 is to create massive amounts of content at minimum cost. Step 2 is to upload everything to YouTube, which has maximum visibility and reach, and attract millions of students. Step 3 is to migrate those students from YouTube to Unacademy app. Step 4 is to sell them paid courses in the Unacademy application. So that's where the real revenue lies, in the application. And first they started with UPSC Civil Services exam, and then they expanded to SSC banking exams. In September 2016, something massive happens in India. The launch of Jio in the telecom arena. Suddenly, hundreds of millions of Indians have affordable internet for the first time. And that directly led to a massive influx of people in YouTube, which in turn helped Unacademy at the right time. Because overnight they had a much bigger market than before. By 2017, Unacademy became India's #1 platform for free educational content, simply because they had the highest number of educators. And in January 2017, Unacademy raised another 30 crores of funding from Nexus Venture Partners and Bloom Ventures. Now by the month of March, the financial year gets completed. So let's look at the numbers for that year. In total, they spent 3.9 crore rupees. But the question is, where did they spend that money? Number 1 is engineers and designers for building the platform. Number 2 is server costs for hosting thousands of videos. And finally, as I said, they paid monthly salaries for some top educators. So this is where most of the money has gone. And in the same financial year, Unacademy made a revenue of 73 lakh rupees. Mostly that revenue came from YouTube ads. Now if 3.5 crores is the spending and they made 73 lakh rupees in revenue, the net loss for that year is 3.2 crores. And in September 2017, they raised another 75 crores of funding from Sequoia Capital and Saif Partners. So now the Tier 1 VCs enter the picture. And then in the same year, the founders got too over ambitious and launched Unacademy in Indonesia and Brazil. But later they had to shut down to focus only on India. And by the end of 2017, Unacademy's valuation reached $45 million. In 2018, Unacademy began its real monetization phase. They launched Unacademy Plus courses. For example, a student will pay around 1000 rupees to purchase a history course for the IAS exam from a specific teacher. And that teacher would conduct live classes and student could ask questions and clear their doubts in real time. So this marked the beginning of Unacademy's paid model. And by March 2018, financial year gets completed. So let's see the numbers. Unacademy spent 25 crores higher than last year's expenditure, that is 28.8 crores. Out of this, around 10 to 12 crores was spent on employees, primarily engineers, designers, and the overall product team. The remaining amount was spent on teacher payments, server costs, and international expansion, which they experimented briefly in 2017, as I said before. And in the same financial year, Unacademy generated 5.2 crores in revenue. That is 4.5 crore higher than last year's revenue. But around 3.5 crores of this was not operating revenue. It did not come from Unacademy's core product or business. It came from interest income. The thing is, since they won't spend all the money they got from investors immediately, Unacademy invested some of the money in banks as fixed deposits. And the interest they got from that investment accounted for this 3.5 crore revenue. The remaining revenue, most of it came from YouTube ads. So with 28.8 crores in expenses and 5.2 crore in revenue, Unacademy recorded a loss of roughly 23.5 crores that year. Then in July 2018, Unacademy raised another 140 crores in funding from Sequoia, Nexus and Saif partners. And in October 2018, Unacademy acquired Wi-Fi Study for 70 crore rupees. Wi-Fi Study was a YouTube channel on SSC and railway exams, and at that time, it had around 4.5 million subscribers. Once Unacademy bought Wi-Fi Study, they began advertising Unacademy app and courses in Wi-Fi Study YouTube channel. And by the end of 2018, Unacademy's valuation had reached $105 million. In February 2019, Unacademy discontinued individual plus courses and launched the Unacademy Plus subscription model that is similar to Netflix model. Now with Unacademy Plus, students only needed to take a monthly or yearly subscription for a particular exam and they will get access to all subjects related to that exam. But for this model to work, Unacademy needed top quality teachers. So they began onboarding some of the best teachers in India and started paying them very high salaries ranging from 1 crore to 5 crore per year. This is where a new phenomenon called star teachers began in the Indian EdTech industry. And since by the month of March financial year 2019 gets completed, let's see the numbers. Unacademy spent roughly 112 crores in that financial year, so that is 80 crores higher than last year. Now out of this, 43 crores are spent on employees, whether it is salaries, ESOPs, benefits, etc. The remaining 69 crores were spent on marketing, salaries to educators, servers and office costs. Now the question is, in 2018 October, they bought Wi-Fi Study. That should also count as an expense, right? The reality is, even though 70 crore rupees was spent on that acquisition, in accounting terms, an acquisition is not treated as an expenditure because since that acquisition might generate money in the future, it is considered as an investment. So it appears on the balance sheet as an asset. So acquisitions are investments, not expenses. In contrast, expenses like marketing and salaries are permanent outflows and are counted as expenditure. Hence, acquisition costs do not directly impact profit or loss, even though the cash does go out, which means the company's available money still reduces, but that is not expenditure. In the same financial year, Unacademy made 22 crores in revenue, that is 18 crores higher than last year's revenue. Now out of those 22 crores, 11 crores came from Unacademy Plus subscriptions, remaining money came from bank interest. So these are the financials. And then in June 2019, Unacademy raised another 345 crores in funding. This funding came from Steadway Capital, Sequoia, Nexus Venture Partners and Bloom Ventures. And with this round, Unacademy's valuation reached $224 million, which was approximately 1500 crores at the time. And then in 2020, with the entry of COVID-19 pandemic, the game for Unacademy moved to an entirely new level. Because of the lockdown, all offline activities came to a halt, and obviously schools, colleges and coaching institutes were forced to shut down. The only solution was to move online. Since Unacademy was already technologically advanced, it was perfectly positioned to fill the gap created by the pandemic. As a result, Unacademy received massive funding. In 2020 alone, the company raised funding for 3 times. In February, they raised roughly 800 crores. Soon after receiving this, in the month of March, Unacademy acquired Creatrix, a startup focused on GATE exam preparation. Now since the financial year ends in March 2020, let's see the numbers. Unacademy spent a total of 386 crore in expenses, that is 270 crore higher than last year. And out of this, 92 crore was spent on employees, some of that was salaries, but mostly it was ESOPs given to employees. And around 110 crores was spent on advertising and marketing. The remaining 130 crores went to teacher salaries and server costs. And during the same financial year, Unacademy generated 86 crore in revenue. That is 64 crores more than last year's revenue. Now out of this 86 crores, 21 crore came from interest income. They made this through keeping funds in banks, and the remaining came from Unacademy Plus subscriptions. Only about 3 crore came from YouTube revenue. So with 386 crore in expenses and 86 crores in revenue, Unacademy recorded a loss of approximately 300 crore in the financial year 2020. And then a fundamental macroeconomic shift took place in the same month. The international economy took a massive hit because of COVID-19, and to fix this, the Federal Reserve in the United States cut interest rates to zero to create demand. The logic was simple: when interest rates are close to zero, loans become cheaper. Cheaper loans reduce production costs for businesses. Lower production costs lead to lower prices for consumers. When consumer gets goods for lower prices, demand increases, and demand helps the economy restart. So this was the core reasoning. Because of this zero interest rate policy, it also became much easier for venture capital firms to invest money in startups. And you'll see Unacademy is also a big benefactor of this. Then in June 2020, Unacademy acquired CodeChef, famous coding platform, to better target engineering students. After that, Unacademy launched a product called Graphy. With Graphy, anyone can create their own online coaching website, sell courses, and manage the entire operation. In simple terms, it is a SaaS platform. In July, Unacademy acquired PrepLadder, a major NEET PG preparation platform, and another company called Mastery. They also signed a 3-year IPL sponsorship deal, spending around 120 to 140 crores. Advertising in IPL means instant nationwide visibility across India, which is massive brand recognition. Then in September, Unacademy raised another 1100 crores in funding. And with this, Unacademy's valuation jumped to $1.4 billion, officially making it a unicorn for the first time. And then they acquired a company called CoreSavvy. In November, Unacademy raised an additional 640 crores in funding, which pushed the company's valuation to $2 billion. The investors in all these funding rounds were firms like General Atlantic, Facebook, SoftBank, Tiger, and Dragoneer Investment Group. As you know, a company like Facebook investing in Indian startups is extremely rare, and when such large global giants invest, the publicity is massive. And with that, founders often develop a sense of extreme overconfidence, a mindset of there is no turning back now. The same thing happened with the founders of Unacademy. And in December, they acquired another EdTech company called NeoStencil. In February 2021, Sachin Tendulkar invested in Unacademy, but the exact figure was not disclosed. Sachin Tendulkar also became Unacademy's brand ambassador. He also conducted a few classes on the platform and did advertising for Unacademy. So they wanted to focus on cricket to attract students. In the same month, Unacademy acquired a jobs-related platform called TapChief. And then they acquired Handa Ka Funda, a CAT exam preparation platform, in March. Now, since the financial year ends by March 2021, let's look at the numbers. Unacademy spent a massive 2030 crores in expenditure, that is roughly 1650 crores higher than last year. So spending increased astronomically. Now to break this down, around 750 crore was spent on employee salaries and ESOPs. Approximately 540 crores was paid to teachers, and 410 crores was spent on marketing and advertising, which includes IPL sponsorship also, and the remaining amount was related to server infrastructure and other operational costs. And in the same financial year, Unacademy made a total revenue of 464 crores. That is roughly 380 crores higher than last year. So revenue also grew decently. Now out of that 464 crores, around 400 crore was operating revenue, came from subscriptions, and tiny amount from YouTube as well. The remaining 64 crore came from interest income as usual. So with 2030 crores in expenses and 464 crores in revenue, Unacademy recorded a loss of roughly 1500 crores in financial year 2021. Then in May 2021, Unacademy rebranded TapChief, which they had acquired earlier, and launched it as Relevel, a jobs and hiring platform. In July, Unacademy acquired Rio TV, a gaming live streaming platform, but they made that acquisition primarily for the superior live streaming technology Rio TV had, not for gaming purposes. Then in August 2021, Unacademy raised another 3,270 crore in funding. It was the largest funding round in Unacademy's journey. Investors in this round included Temasek Holdings, Mirae Asset, SoftBank, General Atlantic, and Tiger Global. But more interesting, Deepinder Goyal, founder of Zomato, and Ritesh Agarwal, founder of Oyo, also invested in some smaller amounts. And with this funding round, Unacademy's valuation reached $3.4 billion. That is the peak Unacademy stood at. And with the level of funding and publicity they got, the confidence of Unacademy's founders was virtually on space. In October 2021, Unacademy acquired another company called Spay, and in November, they acquired Swify Learn. In 2022 February, the COVID lockdown is lifted. offline activities back. And so schools, colleges, and coaching centers reopened, and students began returning to offline education. So from now, the real trouble for the EdTech sector began. Demand for online subscriptions declined sharply, and customer acquisition costs rose like hell. And more important, earlier, as I said, the Federal Reserve had cut interest rates to zero in 2020, but by March 2022, interest rates were increased again. This made subsequent funding far more difficult for startups. From 2022 onwards, Unacademy did not raise any fresh funding for a single time. But because the company had raised massive capital during 2020 and 2021, it continued operating using those reserves. Now, since the financial year ends in March, let's look at the numbers for financial year 2022. Unacademy spent a total of 3,700 crores. That is roughly 1,700 crore more expenditure than last year. Now, in this expenditure, around 1,770 crore was spent on employees for ESOPs and salaries. If you see, Unacademy had acquired a lot of companies in the previous years. Now the workforce from those companies also became part of Unacademy, and that significantly increased employee costs. And around 800 crore was spent on teacher compensation, around 550 crore was spent on advertising and marketing, and around 320 crore was spent on legal, professional, hardware and IT costs, and about 140 crore was recorded as write-offs for 3 acquired startups. Now to clarify these write-offs, when a company is acquired, I said it appears on the balance sheet as an asset. But if that company fails to perform, auditors will no longer allow it to remain on the balance sheet. At that point, it must be written off. Writing off something means a company or any asset that is acquired is no longer worth anything. It is worth zero. So now the earlier acquisition cost becomes an expense. And so this is a clear sign that Unacademy was not prudent enough in buying good companies. And on the revenue side, Unacademy generated 844 crores, that is 380 crores higher than last year. The majority of that revenue came from subscriptions, and as usual, some revenue came from interest income and a small amount from YouTube revenue. So with 3,700 crores in expenses and 844 crore in revenue, Unacademy reported a loss of roughly 2,850 crores. So revenue was growing, but losses were growing even higher. So to control costs, in April, Unacademy laid off around literally 1,000 employees and also reduced some employee benefits. And then in June, they realized relying only on online education could lead to a decline. So Unacademy launched its first offline center in Kota. And then offline centers were launched in multiple cities. And these centers were launched in premium real estate with heavy investment in advanced technology integration and branding, making them high-cost operations. And then the ultimate political move happens. Unacademy began aggressively hiring top teachers from Allen Institute, offering multi-crore salary packages. To fight against this, in July, Allen filed a court case against Unacademy, but that didn't hurt Unacademy much. And in September, Unacademy acquired GATE Academy, a platform focused on GATE exam preparation. But the company's financial picture is not strong. So in November, they laid off another 350 employees. By 2023, the financial pressure intensified. On one side, growth had slowed down significantly. On the other, the cash raised from investors was steadily getting exhausted. Now, as I mentioned earlier, in 2021, Unacademy had acquired TapChief and rebranded it as Relevel. By 2023, Relevel was not at all performing, so the company modified the product once again and relaunched it as Next Level, positioning it as a LinkedIn-style jobs platform. In March 2023, Unacademy laid off another 380 employees. Around the same time, Unacademy made an important structural decision. I said they acquired CodeChef in 2020. Now in 2023, they made it an independent company, fully separate from Unacademy. The reason was straightforward. CodeChef was not generating enough revenue in comparison to the cost of running it. If it remained a part of Unacademy, its expenses would show up clearly in Unacademy's financial results, while its revenue contribution was minimal. So to clean up the financials, CodeChef was spun off from Unacademy. Now since the financial year ends in March, let's look at the numbers for 2023. The total expenditure stood at 2,734 crores. So compared to the previous year, expenses had been reduced roughly by 1,000 crores, mainly due to the large-scale layoffs they carried out since 2022. Now the breakup of these expenses were similar to before: employee costs, teacher payments, marketing and technology infrastructure. And on the revenue side, Unacademy generated 1,044 crores. That is roughly 150 crores higher than last year's revenue. Now out of this, 907 crore was operating revenue made from students, but for the first time, a significant portion of this revenue came from offline centers. The remaining 130 to 140 crore came from interest income as usual. So with 2,734 crore in expenses and 1,044 crore in revenue, Unacademy reported a loss of roughly 1,680 crores. If you see, this financial year is quite better because they reduced losses and increased revenue. But the core problem remained the same. The demand for online subscriptions had fallen significantly. So the platform model that they dreamed was falling to the floor. So because of this, Unacademy's valuation also declined from 3.4 billion last year to below 2 billion this year. And then in June, Unacademy acquired a company called Scenes, a community platform similar to Discord. So if you see, even amidst this financial stress, the temptation to keep acquiring companies had not completely disappeared. By 2024, growth had almost completely stalled. In simple terms, the startup was no longer growing organically. Growth was happening only when the company spent aggressively on marketing and customer acquisition. And without fresh investor capital, the startup simply could not move forward. As a result, motivation within the company declined and the founders began exploring options to sell Unacademy. Looking at the numbers of financial year 2024, the total expenditure stood at 1,627 crores. If you observe the trend year by year, Unacademy has been consistently reducing expenses, primarily by laying off hundreds of employees. But revenue tells a different story. In the previous year, revenue was 1,044 crores. In FY 2024, it declined to 988 crore. This is the first time Unacademy's revenue actually declined instead of increasing. So with 1627 crore in expenses and 988 crore in revenue, Unacademy recorded a loss of roughly 630 crores. Even though loss is reduced, the core business was not growing. Revenue was stagnant or declining, but Unacademy had one important financial safeguard. The company had around 1,200 crore in bank deposits, generating regular interest income. They actually did this as a precaution to ensure the startup would not collapse like BYJU'S. Essentially, it acted as a cash buffer against bankruptcy. In April 2024, Unacademy tried a new experiment. Seeing limited growth in the coaching business, they launched Learn, a language learning app similar to Duolingo, and they launched it globally, not just in India. The product did work to some extent and is still operational today, but still it did not materially change Unacademy's financial fortunes. And another important development took place in 2024. The story goes back to October 2021. Unacademy had invested in a company called K12 Techno Services, which operates Orchards International Schools, a network of 90 plus schools across India. These schools were performing decently and the company was financially profitable. In 2024, Unacademy explored the idea of merging with K12 Techno Services in a 50-50 partnership, hoping that K12's financial strength would support Unacademy. But this deal failed because Unacademy's performance was weakening, and by the end of 2024, Unacademy's valuation had fallen to around $800 million. So the company lost its unicorn status. And at this valuation, Unacademy attempted to sell itself to Allen Institute, the same institute that Unacademy challenged 1 year ago. But this deal also collapsed. By 2025, Unacademy's financial performance weakened further, revenue declined, losses also declined, but still the 1,200 crore kept in bank deposits remained intact. This was a deliberate move to ensure the company would not go bankrupt at any cost. And Unacademy finally made a serious attempt to sell the company to Upgrade. But even this deal too collapsed in January this year. If you see, Unacademy tried a strategic exit for 3 times and failed. First a merger attempt with K12 Techno Services, and then a sale to Allen Institute, and again a sale to Upgrade. All 3 attempts failed unfortunately. And unfortunately again, it is historic irony that the same company that acquired over a dozen companies failed to sell itself. And this, in essence, is the downfall of Unacademy.